Hey there, everybody. Here's another edition of Rams Roundup with the Fordham men's basketball team. Matt Moro with you. Pleased to be joined, as always, by the head coach of the Fordham Rams, Jeff Neubauer. And, Coach, got a couple of really tight, exciting games to go over from this past week. Let's start here at home, St. Bonaventure. The game goes to OT. The Bonnies take it, but what was your analysis of that one? It comes down to the end, a couple of late possessions. The Bonnies win by 4, but what did you think of your team's effort in that game?
Well, it's the first time this season in the Atlantic 10 that we've been able to put one of the elite teams in an end-of-game situation. So we are proud of that. I know most programs, when you lose a game, it really hurts. Well, that's the exact same way it feels for us here at Fordham. But we had been beaten by double figures so many times by these elite Atlantic 10 teams, it actually felt great to compete. We did shorten our bench. We played fewer players. David Pekarik's really stepped up and given us a big lift. Really proud of the way our team fought.
You mentioned David Pekarik, 19 points now in a career high in the St. Bonaventure loss. What can you say about his growth and maturity so far in this freshman season?
Well, it's so interesting because I did feel before he got injured that he could be a starter for us. So this is back in October and November. I really thought that he was going to help us a ton. However, he got injured and missed the 5 most important weeks of practice. And then it was hard for me as a coach to work him back in. I don't know that I did the best job that I could. It also took him a while to learn about value for the basketball, and then also he's shooting it better now. So he is becoming the player that we hoped he would be, and I think he's going to be very good for us here in the future.
Part of the reason he's gotten the last couple of starts is because Mandel Thomas is out right now, lower body injury, and Mandel obviously is so important to this team. He's a senior leader, one of the best scorers, one of the best all-around defenders, players on this team. What is it like having to go through an important stretch of the season without one of your top guns?
Well, I do think this is part of college basketball, so there are teams all around the country that are dealing with injuries. I've been very fortunate as a coach. We really have not dealt with major injuries as much as we have this year in my past. It's very difficult. It's a challenge. However, it does give others opportunities. It's not like we're playing the game 5-on-4. It just means other people need to step up.
Moving on to the Richmond game this past weekend, it was a 93-82 game the first time that you guys played here at Rose Hill. So there were fireworks, there were huge runs, there were huge leads for both sides. This second game, another win for the Spiders down in Richmond, but it was much more back and forth, a lot closer. Did you expect that to be more of a 3-4 point effort for the duration of the 40 minutes like it was?
Well, again, for us to compete with a top 100 team and to do it on their home court, it's a good step for us. So we led most of the game, and quite honestly, if our program were in a better condition, we would have won the game. We had 2 turnovers in the last 4 minutes that were just inexcusable. They're turnovers that you cannot expect to win with. However, our defense gave us a chance to win, and offensively, we did a lot more positive things at the offensive end than we had been doing. So the fact that we've played well offensively against Bonaventure and Richmond 2 consecutive games is something that we're trying to build on.
In those 2 consecutive games, you've had some late game situations where you could have called a timeout and strawed something up, but you're electing to allow the guys on the floor to go with it, not allow the defense to set up. Do you hope that the last 2 experiences for your guys will, enable them to handle those situations better down the road?
In general, we don't call timeouts at the end of a game. Now, with that being said, against Bonaventure, with about 24, 28 left in the game, we did call a timeout. But in general, that's why we have practice. We teach our guys in practice what's expected there, and so we do need to finish games. We need to execute better in those situations. We haven't been in those situations very often.
Is that the biggest takeaway from the last 2 games? I know you mentioned being able to compete against those top teams, but now that you've been in those situations, do you hope that the team takes those experiences and can build on them moving forward?
Absolutely, and our thing is we've got to learn to compete at this level. So we've finally done it here the last 2 games, and it does feel better that we've competed with 2 top 100 teams, including the game at Richmond. So we have to just continue to improve our defense. Our value for the ball, I think, has gotten a little bit better, and we're shooting a little better as well.
Fordham head basketball coach Jeff Neubauer here on this week's edition of Rams Roundup. Now we're joined here on Rams Roundup by sophomore forward of the Fordham Rams, Christian Sengfelder. Chris, thanks so much for joining us for the first time this year on Rams Roundup.
Sure, not a problem.
All All right, Chris, let's start with maybe your season in general. We haven't had you on yet, so let's talk about how this season might have been an adjustment for you. Obviously, you come in as a freshman under a previous regime. Now it's your first year, just like everyone else's, with head coach Jeff Neubauer and the rest of the staff. How was that transition for you throughout the summer and then into this season?
It was basically another freshman year for me. It was completely different from last year, especially summer school. We were kind of working like preseason already. It was very exhausting, very challenging. And then we play a completely different style of basketball. On the defensive end, we're rotating, we're flying around. Offensively, I think we rely a lot of good cutting and passing the ball and sharing the ball. So I would say it's just a completely new freshman season for me. I'm starting over again after my first year.
Coach Neubauer has described you when talking about why you fit defensively is that even though you might not be as quick as some of the guards out on the floor, you anticipate as well as anyone that he coaches. Is that, you think, your biggest strength on the defensive end with such a new system this year?
I would say my biggest strength is that I just go all out in every single second when I'm out there. And that's how I make up for a lot of my lack of athletic ability, because I don't know, white, I guess.
Despite whatever lack of ability you might see yourself having, you obviously had a great freshman season a year ago, and your sophomore season, your numbers have pretty much stayed in line. There was a time earlier this year where you had to miss a game due to injury. Did that affect you at all coming back? It was a little bit of a slow start coming back from that foot injury, but do you think that missing that game and kind of having to be out of it for a little bit kind of affected the way you were playing at that point?
Maybe it killed my rhythm a little bit, but I wouldn't say it really affected my game. I didn't really feel it that much in games, like in those timeouts and like those little rest phases in the game. I did feel it, but when I was actually out there competing, I didn't really feel it at all. I didn't really know why I had this kind of slow start after that, but just lucky I had some good games the past couple of games, so I get my rhythm back.
You certainly have had a bunch of good games in the past, bit of games, and your team has as well. UMass is coming up this week. The last time you played them, it was the team's first road win of the season. You guys get into overtime. You're able to take down the Minutemen on the road. Now you get them back at Rose Hill. What do you remember about that game that could maybe give you guys a benefit going into the second matchup with them?
What do I remember? I mean, I think we had some grit in that game, especially getting a road win on the road against UMass. Last year we went down there and we lost, I think we had a pretty close game and then we lost it in the end. So just to fight through it in the end and get the W, especially after overtime, I think that shows some grit and competitiveness that we had. And I think that's also gives us maybe a little edge going into this game right now, because we play them at home and we know we can beat them on the road. So we can definitely beat them at home.
The last couple of games have been real tight ones for you guys, despite losses. The game against St. Bonaventure goes to overtime, just a 4-point loss, and then a 4-point loss down at Richmond against the Spiders. But Coach Neubauer talked about how those can be positives because you're finally taking elite teams to late game situations. You're not losing by double digits. You're making that a game where you could win late in the game. Is that the way the team feels as well, that despite those losses still hurting, they can be positives in that against good teams, you're going down to the wire?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think seeing that we can play with the top teams in the league, especially now in the late stretch, like against St. Bonaventure, as you said, by 4 points, that's 1-2 mistakes that we cut off, and then we win this game, and then we're in the top of the conference.
You're a forward yourself, so you play down low. The play of your front court teammate, Ryan Rooms, has been spectacular this season. You saw him last year, and he was certainly an important contributor to this team, but he has stepped up his game in virtually every category this season. What's it like to see Ryan transform his game in his senior season and have such a great year down low with you guys?
It is absolutely necessary for us to have him down low working, and it's so crucial for us to win and to have a good team and to have a winning season. Just having this option in the low post that we can go to whenever we want to, and we know every time we give it to him, it's a bucket. That's just absolutely crucial for us. And Coach Neubauer challenged him a lot over in preseason and in the beginning of the season, and is still challenging him to be aggressive there and to step up his game. And he just responded in a very, I would say, good way, great way.
When we have the players here on Rams Roundup for the first time, we like to ask them a little bit about what they think they've improved on and what they can still improve on. So what is something you think in this your sophomore season you've taken the biggest step in, and what's something that moving forward you think you still need to work on?
I think my jump shot, especially from three-point land, I stepped that up a lot, especially in the non-conference games. I was shooting I think 50% or something. I definitely worked on my shot, I think. And then also I did get, I think I would say, a little quicker due to the defense we play. But I think that's also like where I have to work on the most. I think I still have to go a lot in the weight room and like with Willie Cruz, like do some extra work after practices. And as soon as the summer comes, I'll be working again and trying to get even quicker.
Well, just maybe to wrap things up, because you mentioned him, Willie Cruz is a new addition to this staff, and a lot of the guys sing his praises. What does he do to really help you guys improve, off the court?
I would say his main work was basically in the summer and in preseason when we were like every day in the work in the weight room, and he was doing he's like kind of like our athletic trainer, work like lifting coach. Also, he gives us nutrition advices, and he has also like stretching us and like taking care of the body. So every time we have like a little issue that we can talk to him, he stretches out. We go to Zip, our trainer as well, and then it's more like the athletic side of the court, not the actual basketball part. Even though we do kind of have some individual workouts after practices with him, but especially the lifting and athletic part, that's what he's responsible for.
Sophomore forward Christian Sengfelder joining us here on Rams Roundup for the first time this season. Chris, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this week's edition of Rams Roundup. A huge thanks to Fordham head basketball coach Jeff Neubauer and this week sophomore forward Christian Sengfelder. The Rams are back in action Wednesday night, Rose Hill Gym, 7 p.m. tip with the Minutemen of UMass. You can see that game live for free on the 810 digital network. And then the Rams hit the road again. They're taking on the Billikens of St. Louis, 8 p.m. Eastern, Saturday night at Chaffetz Arena. Matt Moro here with this week's edition of Rams Roundup. You can check us out on FordhamSports.com.